Welcome to the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. This is Doctora Yvette Martinez-Vu, and I will be serving as your femtor, providing you with tips and tricks and everything else you need to know to get into graduate school. For the past 10 years, I've been helping undergraduate students get into top graduate programs in their field, and I'm really excited to share this information with you too. Hi everyone, I'm doing a quick little Q&A episode. It's a bonus episode, so surprise! You might not have known that this was coming. I'm going to try to record a few more short bonus episodes from here on out. I'm going to aim for every week, but it might not be every week depending on the questions that come in. There might be some weeks I don't get questions, so maybe every week, maybe every other week, but either way, it'll just show up on your feed. So make sure that if you are listening to me, that you've subscribed on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever app or computer system that you use to listen to my podcast. Okay. All right, so today's question is all about letters of recommendation. And the question is something along the lines of, can I have too many letters of recommendation? Typically, I get the opposite question is, help, I don't have enough recommenders. How do I secure, how do I make sure that I secure 3 letters of rec? But if you have the opposite problem, can you actually have too many letters of rec? What happens if you not just have 3 recommenders, but you actually have 4 or 5 people, and all of them, you have that really great problem where all of them are excited and looking forward to writing you a letter of recommendation. What do you do then? I'll tell you what I've told my students before, and I'll tell you how I've been involved in this matter in the past. I have written several letters of recommendation for people in my position with the McNair program. Even prior to that, I wrote letters of rec as a grad student, when I was a TA for certain students and would co-sign with the professor. And I would always, especially as a staff member now, because I'm not an instructor, I'm not a professor, I would always tell students, I'd be happy to write you a letter, but I would prefer it to be your 4th recommender. What does that mean? That means that they secure 3 letters of rec, ideally from professors in their discipline or in the discipline that they're going to be applying into grad school. And then I'd be that 4th one, that extra letter. I can write about how I know them personally and write a very strong letter all about how I know them as a student and how I know them personally and the growth that I've seen in them over time. And by being a 4th letter writer, that means that the student would then have to reach out to all of the programs that they're applying to ask if they would even accept an extra letter. Sometimes you can actually figure that out relatively fast, because if you log into the application portals, and keep in mind, most application portals will be up and running by September 1st. So you can go in, log in, and see, and there should be a tab or a link for the letter of recommendation section. And typically they ask you for the email or the emails of each of your recommenders. And so you can see there might only be 3 spots, or maybe they have 4 or 5 spots for you to input emails. If you can put more than 3, that means that they're allowing you to submit more than 3 letters. But again, it doesn't hurt to reach out. I recommend contacting the staff person from that department, the graduate advisor, and asking them directly if they accept more than 3 letters of recommendation. And if so, you can say, I actually have 5 recommenders who would like to submit letters. Would it be okay for me to submit 2 additional letters? They might say yes, they might say no, we're only accepting 3, and that's it. We don't want to look at anything else. We don't want supplemental materials. So you always want to make sure that you're applying and giving the programs what they want. So that's, I guess, my advice for that situation is, can you have too many letters of recommendation? Maybe, but it doesn't hurt. It can only help you to have that 4th or even a 5th recommender. But especially a 4th letter, because I'll tell you, there's been so many times that I had students come up to me at the last minute saying, Professor so-and-so still hasn't submitted their letter. Do you think you can submit your letter? And I would much rather receive that information well in advance and not have to submit something at the last minute, hours before a deadline. I'm not a fan of that. So if the student already knew in advance that they could submit 4 or 5 letters, and then I had the same amount of time as every other recommender, we all turn them in by the deadline, then you're good. Or maybe one person forgets and you had 4 recommenders, you still have 3, your application is still considered complete. I hope that makes sense. So help, I have too many recommenders. What do I do now? What you do is you contact your programs, find out if you can submit extra letters. And for those that do allow extra letters, go ahead and have that 4th or 5th recommender. And for those that don't, determine which professors are going to write all the letters and which ones are just going to write for the programs that allow extra letters. All right, I hope you found that helpful, and I will talk to you all later. Thanks so much for joining me in the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please rate this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you tune in. You can also support the podcast by donating to my Patreon page, Anchor page, or Venmo account, which is at Grad School Femtoring. If you have questions or episode topics, you can contact me by sending me a DM on Instagram, sending me an email to gradschoolfemtoring@gmail.com, sending me a voice message on Anchor, or sending me a message via my personal website at YvetteMartinezvu.com. Until next time.